And welcome back to Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and which strategy in Commander do you hate the most? You know, it's funny, I made this video before and it was called the 10 most hated strategies in Commander. I actually finished the video, I had it uploaded and everything, ready to go, and I had also uploaded my What Does White Do Best video as well. And I was sort of mulling over which one I was going to post first. I ended up posting What Does White Do Best? And after that video came out, I sort of saw the comments of what people were saying and I thought, maybe I'll redo the strategies video. And I thought about redoing it and I made some changes and then ultimately I ended up deleting it. Because the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? All these strategies that I have named covers just about everything you can do in Commander. I mean, it doesn't really leave a whole lot else. So I decided to completely rethink how I was going to do this video. I will first go over the list. Here's the list that I had. So I had extra turns as an honorable mention. And the reason I had it as an honorable mention is because I didn't think that extra turns was necessarily an actual strategy. I mean, maybe it is. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to tell me their buddy has a really annoying extra turns deck. Typically, you're setting up a combo, right? I don't think there's enough extra turn spells in the game to actually just be taking extra turns all the time. I don't know, maybe there is. Typically though, either it's like a Narset deck where it's a combination of extra turns and extra combats, or it's I'm setting up a combo where I take an infinite amount of turns, which is more of a combo deck, I think. I mean, it definitely needs to be mentioned, but I didn't think that it actually was a strategy all on its own. Typically what people are talking about there is playing solitaire, right? That's really what we're talking about. One person sits there and plays Magic by themselves while everyone just sits around and watches. Taking an infinitely long turn is the exact same thing as taking an infinite amount of turns. So it all ends up becoming the same thing. If I have an Urza deck and I have dramatic reversal on my Isochron Scepter and I'm untapping and tapping that a million times and casting off the top of my deck, that's really the exact same thing, right? You're not going to have any extra turns in that deck, probably. I don't think you need to, but it's essentially the exact same strategy. So that's why I gave it an honorable mention. Definitely there's lots of people that don't like it though. INFECT was another one that I had given an honorable mention to because it's not that threatening. Like a lot of people, you know, in the beginning, I didn't love it. I didn't like that out of nowhere, someone could just up and do me 10 poison damage and I was dead. I'm still not a big fan of Blightsteel Colossus for that reason because it can just one-shot you. However, it really isn't that threatening, so that's why I only gave it an honorable mention. The rest of the list, and in no particular order, I'm kind of just going to throw them out there. It's really subjective, the order that you give them. Mill, and yes, like I said in my Phoenix Deck Doctor video, for whatever reason, people really hate Mill. I don't see it win a lot of games, but people really do dislike having their library milled. Super Friends, people definitely hate that. There's a lot of people that can't stand Super Friends. For me, you know, I just played in an era where everyone was playing a Traxxas Super Friends deck. So I guess I just have a hatred for it just from that. Hug, that's right. There are people out there, myself included, that don't like Hug decks. I'll tell you why I don't like it. You know, I've come across a lot of people that don't love playing in a game with a Hug deck. For me, I find that Hug decks just help the best deck win faster. The guy playing the Tatiova deck is going to have 20 lands in play, right? So when the Hug guy casts Minds Aglow and everybody draws 10 cards, the guy with the 20 lands is going to be able to cast all that stuff and do a whole bunch of things. Then it comes to my turn. I got 5 lands in play because I'm playing my mono white deck and I cast maybe 1 or 2 spells and then discard the hand size at the end of the turn. So for me, the guy with the Expropriate in his deck, the guy with the Ulamog in his deck, he's just going to be able to cast that a whole lot faster than he normally would if there's a Hug player, right? That's why I don't like Hug. I find it just helps the most powerful deck of the table win even faster than it normally would. A lot of people do like it though. I mean, it's not for everybody. Chaos, same thing. Chaos was also on my list for the same reason. I find it sort of just completely changes the dynamic of the game. You know, it's almost like you're not playing Magic anymore, right? When you cast a Scramble verse or something like that, you're basically just throwing the game into a blender and let's just see what happens. You might as well be playing roulette at that point. Like, let's just spin the wheel and whatever comes up, comes up. And it sort of doesn't even play to the strategy of your deck at all because whoever is winning, it's based almost entirely on luck, really. And again, a lot of people do like it. A lot of people think it's fun to play a game like that. Discard is on the list. Mass discard, like a Tiny Bones deck, a Nicol Bolas deck. I'm just going to make my opponents discard their entire hands, so they're just sitting there not really doing anything. I had a Damia Sage of Stone deck that did that. Worked really well. Wasn't a lot of fun, so that's why I took it apart. For obvious reasons, people really don't like mass discard. Mass counterspells. I don't think I need to explain this one. This is one of the most hated strategies. I don't even know if this is a strategy necessarily. I mean, yeah, I guess it is. There is a lot of decks out there like Baral and Talrond that you're just going to cram like 40 counterspells in your deck and just counter everything your opponents do. I've definitely played against a lot of decks like this in my day. And you know, the person who is playing that deck probably even realizes that they're going to become the archenemy pretty quickly, but they still don't care because, you know, they have enough counterspells that I think they can handle it. Stealing. Man, people really hate stealing. Again, just like with Mill, stealing isn't a necessarily powerful strategy. It's not great, not going to win you the game, but people really hate having their stuff stolen. Having your commander stolen in particular really sucks. You know, especially if you've built your entire deck around your commander, and without your commander, you're not really doing much. But just having your stuff stolen in general. I've said in the past, I've had a Lord of Tressorhorn deck and a Yasova Dragonclaw deck. Both, the theme was I steal my opponent's stuff and then sacrifice it or whatever. Ended up taking both the decks apart because, man, people really don't like that. They just really hate it. And I don't blame them, I guess. Also, the Gonti, I take my opponent's stuff and sort of use it against them. People don't love that either. People really don't like having their stuff used against them. And the top two on my list were Stacks and Mass Land Destruction. I think those don't require any explanation. People really don't like either of them. I would say those and a few other strategies on this list, people probably don't consider casual at all. I also had just combo win, right? So just I infinite combo Kiki Jiki and Deceiver Exarch or something like that, where I just put 2 cards in play, combo, and I win, right? There's a lot of people that don't consider that to be casual at all. And again, I'm not going to get into the debate of what's casual and what's not. Mostly I'm talking about the strategies that people hate. And when you look at the list of all these strategies that people don't like, what you see is what the heck is left, right? What really is left? I mean, there's aggro, which guess what? A lot of people don't like that either. A lot of people, if you show up to a casual game with an Edgar Markov deck, aren't going to be very pleased about it. Voltron, even though, again, it's not particularly powerful, a lot of people don't really like playing against it. So really, almost everything is covered here. And the reason why I'm talking about this video the way I am is because I was thinking about, again, my What White Does Best video. After reading the comments and a lot of people saying that people don't like these white strategies, that's why people don't do them. And I'm thinking, man, how many strategies are there that people don't like? People don't like the green strategies either. I Craterhoof Behemoth and win. Avenger of Zendikar, Craterhoof Behemoth, and you're dead. How many people like that? How many people like dying to a giant torment of hellfire? How many people like their opponent casting an expropriate or a time stretch or any other blue I steal your stuff or take extra turn spells? How many people like the red chaos, scramble verse, warp world type cards that completely throw the game into a blender? And I know there's a lot of people out there that really, really hate counter spells. And I had given this example, if there anyone who watched my Yosei deck tech for my Underwhelming Commander series, that's a Staxy deck, obviously. There's really no other way to play that deck. And I was talking about Kismet, and your opponents aren't going to love that. It's a great card. You could put that in any deck. It's only going to hinder your opponents. Their artifacts, creatures, and lands come into play tap. That's a great advantage for you, but it's going to annoy your opponents, so they're going to want to get rid of it right away. Or maybe you even become the arch enemy because you have a card like that in play. But what if another opponent has a Rhystic Study? You got another opponent with a Rhystic Study. You got a Kismet. What's the target here? Who's the target here? Are they going to now go after you because of your Kismet, or are they going to pay more attention to the guy with the Rhystic Study? What if there's a guy at the table who's playing a Baral deck and he's countering everything? Are they still going to target me because of my Kismet? I don't know. I had another guy comment on that video about life gain and even said, yeah, life gain's not great because you gain a bunch of life and now you're at 60 or 70 or 80 life and everyone targets you. And you know what? He's not wrong. I have seen that happen where people will just attack the guy with the most life. My response to him was, okay, but are you going to go after the guy with 60 life? Or are you going to go after the guy who has 12 cards in hand? Or are you going to go after the guy that has 15 lands in play? There's so many different things going on in the game that whether or not these strategies are liked or disliked, at the end of the day, and I'm coming full circle here with one of my first videos I ever did that got a lot of attention, which was my 5 worst plays in Commander video. At the end of the day, it comes down to making good threat assessment. Yeah, that guy who's got the Kismet is going to be a little annoying, but Rhystic Study is a way better card. In fact, with the Kismet in play, it's an even better card, ironically, because your opponents probably aren't going to have enough mana to pay for the Rhystic Study. So if I got a Krosan Grip in my hand, I'm killing the Rhystic Study. Yeah, the Kismet's annoying, but good threat assessment means I'm going to kill the Rhystic Study first, most likely, right? There's probably a lot of other factors in play here. But if I'm just looking at those 2 enchantments, clearly Rhystic Study is the better one. So which strategy do you hate most in Commander? Obviously, people can comment. They prefer not to play against this. They prefer not to play against that. For me, I was a guy that was very hardline in the beginning. Didn't think any sort of mass land destruction was casual at all. Didn't think that stacks was casual at all. If a guy played a Blood Moon in a casual game, when I first started playing, I would scoop and see you later. I've changed my mind quite a bit on this topic. I recently made a patron deck tech again for one of my patrons. It was a Myojin of the Cleansing Fire deck, and I told them to put Cataclysm in that deck. Cataclysm is a card that probably a lot of people would scoop if you cast it. But, you know, I think about that card and I think that would make for a really interesting game, to be quite honest. I know it doesn't seem like fun, but think about it. Everyone sacks everything except for 1 creature, 1 artifact, 1 enchantment, and 1 land. So you really got to think about it, right? You really got to think about, what am I going to keep? Maybe you got a Ghostly Prison in play. Now nobody can attack you because nobody has the mana to pay for it. You have to look at the other players and see what they have in play, and that will depend on what you keep and what you don't. I know it sounds crazy, but I think it would actually make for an interesting game if someone cast a spell like that. I mean, is it that interesting for everyone to be ramping like crazy and drawing tons of cards? Is that really interesting? I don't think it's that interesting. I mean, it's okay once in a while, but do we want every game to be like that? I think once in a while, it'd be interesting to see a Cataclysm or a Razia's Purification is another interesting one, cast in a Commander game, and let's see where the game goes from here. Basically, what I'm bringing up here is just think about all these strategies I just named, and I think the list that I gave, probably everybody watching this video is going to take at least half of the strategies on that list and say that they hate them and they don't want to play against them. But what does that leave? Okay, even if you only take half those strategies off the list, doesn't really leave a whole bunch, does it? And I know, yes, we do have play groups a lot of the time, and you can all agree that maybe you shouldn't be playing certain strategies, but typically when you are in a play group and you X out certain strategies that can't be played, all it does is allow people to take advantage of that because they know you're not going to be doing that. If you have banned Hull Breacher, let's say for example, in your play group, well, that just allows one of your opponents to draw cards like crazy because he never has to worry about Hull Breacher coming down, right? I know people don't like that card, but I kind of like it. I kind of like that that card exists in the format. I like that cards like even Mind Sensor and Opposition Agent exist in the format because it actually makes you think. It actually makes you to think about what you're doing rather than just, I'm going to dump a bunch of mana into a huge spell and run away with the game. Because if we start getting rid of all these things in the format, right? If we start getting rid of all the things that people don't like, the Hull Breachers and the stacks pieces, then it just becomes who can get the most mana in play and who can cast the biggest spells or who can combo off the quickest. I know it sounds kind of weird for me to say that, hey, Cataclysm and Hull Breacher, those are fun cards. You know, maybe they're not fun. They just add an interesting aspect to the game. They brought Landwalk back recently. Does that make the game funner? Does it make the game funner for you to have a creature that is essentially unblockable against one opponent? Maybe it's not fun for that guy. I think it adds an interesting aspect to the game. Same goes with Protection, right? Protection can be really unfun. You know, it's not fun to play a Orzhov deck against an Animar deck. It really isn't. I've done it before, but it's once in a while, and Protection really adds an interesting aspect to the game. I've made a few decks now that are sort of based on the whole idea of Protection and using something like Painter's Servant to give yourselves an advantage, right? I don't want to exclude things, is basically what I'm saying here. Even though a lot of these strategies I named seem really unfun, if we just keep excluding more and more things, there's just so much in the game that we're not going to be able to play. And Commander is sort of the format where you're supposed to be able to do everything. Am I contradicting myself? I don't know, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. For me, I would much rather play against that Yosei Stacks deck that I made than play against some guy who's just going to put a Kiki Jiki and a Deceiver Exarch in play and go, okay, game over, next. To me, Yosei Stacks is a problem that I need to solve. There's an issue here. My opponent's stopping me from doing things, and I have to solve that problem and try to figure out how to get over that obstacle. Kiki Jiki and Deceiver Exarch is not really an obstacle. It's just game over, and we all scoop and move on to the next game. Honestly, there's tons of discussion to be had here. For me, my mentality has completely changed since I started this channel. It's interesting listening to the comments that people have. And if you guys want a really good read, go to my comments in the What White Does Best video. Tons of comments there, really interesting, gives you a really good insight into, the way Commander players think. My Is It Casual or Not video, also really, there's so many differing opinions there about what's casual and what's not. It's the reason I made the video. I've got a couple people who got on my case about, hey man, how about having an opinion and don't be afraid to take a side here. That video wasn't about taking sides. That video was about my experience seeing lots of different people having extremely varied opinions on what's casual and what's not. It's a really interesting read if you just want to go through the comments there and see what people said. And I suspect this video will be no different, right? Ultimately, for me, I think what really changed my mind is my CEDH versus EDH video and how I talked about having two different formats so that we could have a banned list for CEDH and a banned list for just regular casual Commander. And I started thinking about the cards that I would ban in regular casual Commander, and man, that list was long. That list was so long. Winter Orb, right? Stasis, Armageddon, all those cards that people don't want to see in casual games. But that seems like a really slippery slope to me. And I am still an advocate for separating the formats, maybe even more so now because the format is moving more in the CEDH direction. But that's just my opinion, right? This is a very subjective video, just sort of getting those juices flowing and the conversation going. And again, with this video, read all those comments. I'm sure there's going to be tons where they think I'm nuts because I want Cataclysm to be played in a casual game. For me, my opinion has changed quite a bit based on the, what I've seen people say, commenting on my videos, the interactions I've had with people, the more the power creep has taken place in the format. The original video that I made, the 10 most hated strategies in Commander, if we got rid of all those strategies that everyone hated, what would be left? It would be a really boring, stale format. People are allowed to dislike whatever they want, right? People can do as they like. I say it all the time. And obviously in your particular play groups, you can do as you like and figure out what you want there and what you don't. For me though, I've really come around to sort of being open to whatever. I used to be the guy that would scoop to the Blood Moon when it came down, and now I'm the guy that's putting it in as many decks as I can. So maybe an old dog can learn new tricks. But that is about it for me. Comment below which strategy you hate most in Commander, or what maybe you think should not be involved in a casual Commander game. Again, if we're talking CEDH, anything goes, right? There's no crying in CEDH. But in casual Commander, what do you think maybe is a strategy that should be avoided? But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.